welcome to the ORiE in Education volunteer training webinar. I'm very sorry for the late start. We had a few technical difficulties, but we should be good to go now. We'll just give it another couple of seconds, make sure everyone has joined, but I won't wait too long because I know I'm already a little bit behind schedule. I hope you've all got a cup of tea and a nice lunch and you're ready to just chill out and listen to me talk for a little bit. I've got my drink ready and I'm feeling nice and calm now we've sorted the technical difficulties. So yeah, I think we will begin, not wait any longer. So got a few housekeeping things we'll run through first. I think the most obvious one is that you might have noticed that there's some captions at the bottom of the screen. We're just trialing the auto caption feature on PowerPoint. So it's not 100% accurate, but you are our guinea pigs today as we're just testing out this new feature to make sure our webinars are 100% accessible and inclusive. You will want to be able to see the slides, so we recommend that you put the video of me in the orange box in the top corner. Through Zoom, I don't know if you're probably all very familiar with Zoom by now, but there's a chat and a Q&A function, so please pop any questions for me in the Q&A function. I'm joined today by my colleague Geraldine, who's kindly co-chairing for me, and at the end of my webinar she's going to ask me all of your questions. A big plus to using the Q&A feature is that you can upvote other questions, so if somebody else asks a question you want the answer to, upvote it and we'll prioritise the questions with a lot of upvotes first. I'll also be using a couple of polls today in the webinar. If you've joined through the Zoom app, they'll work fine. If you've joined through the browser, you won't be able to take part in the polls, but you should still be able to, access all of the webinar. And if you have to leave early for any reason, don't worry, we'll be sending you a video of the webinar later on in the week. And we'll also be sending you a survey just to get your feedback on this webinar, so please do let us know what your thoughts are. And that's all the housekeeping done. So I'm going to be talking today about the ORiE in Education programme, what it is, what we do. I'll also be talking through volunteering with ORiE, so how you can get involved and the support that we can offer you. And then I'll be finishing off the webinar by demonstrating our Lego Furniture Factory workshop. It's one of our more popular outreach activities. And if you have Lego with you, you are welcome to play along at home. I've got my Lego ready. So hopefully you'll get a feel of both how you can run a workshop in person or via a webinar if you want to do it remotely as well. Before I launch into all of that, I just want to introduce myself briefly. So I'm Eve. I'm the Education Officer for the ORiE Society. I've been in post now for about 18 months. I joined in January last year. I really love my job. I love doing all the outreach and working with all the volunteers. It's a really great place to work. And one of the reasons I enjoy my job is that I can see a lot of value in what we do. I think it's really important. So I've always been interested in things that use analytical skills and problem solving. So as you can see, I've got a degree in chemistry and I was an analyst for a finance company for a few years. And if I had known when I was applying to uni that OR was this huge, fascinating field full of all kinds of different jobs that use maths to solve problems, that would have been perfect for me. So yeah, I like that we can hopefully tell other people who are a bit nerdy and like numbers that this great field is out there. And on a slightly more light-hearted note, I also love to bake and eat cakes. So if you have any questions about cake, also feel free to ask me those. And we're going to start our first poll now. So just before I explain more about the ORiE in Education programme, I'm curious to learn a bit about you guys and to know if any of you have volunteered with us before. Okay, so it looks like most of you haven't volunteered before, which is completely fine. Hopefully you'll be really eager to volunteer by the end of the webinar. OR in education was first established about 10 years ago now, and it was called OR in schools. And there was just one aim, which is very simple but very ambitious. OR in schools wanted to ensure that every school child knew what OR is. And thanks to the hard work of all of the volunteers who have helped out over the years and my predecessors as education officer, the programme was really successful. They were able to expand their scope and do outreach work in universities as well as in schools. So a few years ago, the goal changed to every student should know what OR is rather than just every school child. And then about 12 months ago, we changed the name from OR in schools to OR in education. And that was because we wanted a name that would reflect all of the hard work that volunteers do under this outreach programme, not just some of it. So yeah, and the volunteers really are key to the success of this programme. It's just myself on the OR Society staff who looks after education outreach, so it really isn't an exaggeration or flattery when I say that without volunteers the programme wouldn't be as successful as it is and it wouldn't have the reach that it is. You really are essential to shaping this outreach and impacting the students that we can talk to. So why do we do this? Why do we think that OR in education is important? Well, it kind of boils down to two main reasons. The first reason is sort of a more personal, individual reason. So, like I mentioned in my intro, it's a great career for people who enjoy maths and like problem solving and want to help people. And lots and lots of students don't know that OR is a career that lets you apply those skills and help people in all sorts of different industries. So being able to reach students like that is really important. And taking a step back and looking at things from a slightly bigger perspective, as the membership organisation for the OR community, we want to make sure that we're looking after the future of that community and the future of the profession. So if we can do outreach work and we can ensure that students are discovering OR and falling in love with OR, it means that there'll always be a pipeline of clever, interested, curious students moving up to go on to study and work in OR, which is really important. There's a number of different things that we do to try and do this outreach work. So we run workshops in schools, we go to careers events at schools and universities. Sometimes that's a careers talk, sometimes it's a careers fair. We also go along to big public science fairs. So that's an image of my colleague Amy at the Big Bang Fair at the NEC last year. As well as Big Bang fairs, we do things like go to New Scientist Live and Teen Tech events. And then I also develop resources for both teachers and volunteers to use. I give webinars or talks like this one, and I also work with teachers to explain to them how they can also use our resources. I will be coming back to most of this in more detail later on. This is just to kind of give you the big picture overview of ORiE. So that's all of ORiE. Here is how you can fit into this if you'd like to, and I do hope you want to. So the first thing I wanted to go through with you is, as I'm sure you're all very familiar with, no one's ever heard of OR, no one knows what it is, and the easiest way to explain OR is with examples. So this isn't me trying to tell you which examples to use. I'm sure you've got brilliant examples of OR that you tell your family and friends about to help them understand it. that you can also use with students. But these are some examples that I found particularly helpful. I like this one because you can ask it as a question and ask the students, how would you evacuate the Emirates Stadium, which is the Arsenal football grounds, in just 8 minutes? And that's a question that the designers of the stadium had to answer, because they had to prove they could evacuate everyone in just 8 minutes in case there was a fire or an emergency. And getting people to think about that kind of problem and then introducing to them, well, OR helped with that. There was crowd flow simulation, there was modelling. They could look at how people would move through the building, they could test for bottlenecks and remove them. This is a really good way into OR because it's an example that a lot of people can grasp. And in a similar vein, I like to talk about supermarkets, which might sound a bit odd, but I think before COVID and before the global toilet paper shortages that we had in March and April, a lot of us took for granted that you could walk into hundreds of supermarkets across the country whenever you wanted to and buy one of thousands of the different products they stock. And there were millions of customers like you who would also do that. And how the supermarkets think about their supply chain and how they think about the logistics of their deliveries to ensure that that business runs smoothly when it's got so many moving parts on such a huge scale. I think no one ever really thinks about how that happens, but obviously it's OR with the logistics, with the route planning, with the supply chain management, with analysing customer data, like what people buy, where they buy it and when. So again, this is, a lot of people can relate to this example, so I've found it a helpful one to use before. And my last example of OR that I tend to use when I'm interacting with students at events is OR and healthcare. And I geek out about this one a little bit because I just think it's so fascinating. But you can talk about how OR can be used to help with things like staff rotors, and clearly that has applications in loads of different businesses and fields. But when you are assigning surgeons with specialist skills to a rotor or equipment in an operating theatre, that's not just keeping your business running smoothly, that's affecting people's healthcare, that's improving people's lives or potentially even saving lives. So I think that's a nice example. And then there was an algorithm that some researchers came up with a few years ago, and it matches people who need a kidney transplant with living donors. And this algorithm alone led to an extra 250 kidney transplants taking place over, I think, the 7 or 8 years it's been implemented. And I just think this is so cool because I get to tell people that maths and OR save lives, and it's not an exaggeration, it's literally true. So yeah, there's loads of different ways you can explain OR to people, but I think that's usually a helpful place to start, and I find those examples helpful ones to use. And so the events that I kind of gave you a whistle-stop tour of earlier, I'll spend a little bit longer talking about now. So if this webinar sells you and you decide you'd like to volunteer with ORiE and you decide you'd like to go to a careers fair, what that will look like is I'll send you an email with all the information you need. So assuming for now it's an in-person event, which it might not be, I'll tell you where you need to go, what time you need to arrive, where you need to park, everything like that. And then I'll post a box of all the materials you need, either to you or to the venue. And then you just need to arrive before it opens to the students and help to set up the stand. So there's some volunteers on screen there who arrived early, set up our tablecloth, put all of the leaflets and the freebies that we've got on the table, set up the big pop-up banner, And then once the fair opened, they were just chatting with students, quite casual, quite informal, just using their own personal experiences to talk to students about OR, what their job in OR is like, what their career path looks like, and then also kind of some broader advice on OR in general. We've got a careers brochure that's great for helping with that. And then when the event is over, all you need to do is box up everything that you didn't use and leave it somewhere for the courier to come and pick it up and post it back to me. So that's super easy. If you decide that you'd like to give a careers talk, similar to careers fairs, I'll send you an email the week before. I'll tell you everything that you need to know. And I'll also share with you a template that we've got of a slideshow. So you can use that if you'd like to use slides to give a careers talk, or if you'd prefer not to, that's completely up to you. And then the careers talk will usually be anywhere from kind of 10-15 minutes up to 45 minutes, maybe an hour with some Q&A. It just depends on the audience and what the venue have requested. And again, I'll send you a box of leaflets and freebies for you to give out at the end of your talk, so that you'll hopefully entice a few more students. Everyone loves some good freebies. If you decide you'd like to help out at a science fair, they are usually really busy, slightly chaotic, massively fun events. And we usually run a 10 to 15 minute activity that is a good way to introduce people to OR in a really hands-on way. So a very popular one is a short version of the Lego workshop that I'll run through in a bit. We've also got a brand new resource that I didn't get to try before lockdown, which is an introduction to the travelling salesperson problem. There's a pegboard with pegs on and a piece of string that's only long enough to find the optimal route around all of the pegs. So science fairs are just very fast-paced. You won't talk to any one person for too long, but you'll talk to loads of people and just explain the puzzle to them, help them if they get a bit stuck, and just chat about OR and share your enthusiasm, point them in the right direction if they want to know a bit more. And the last kind of event that you might decide you'd like to go to is a workshop. We normally run these in schools rather than universities, and we sometimes run them as a one-off in a school just for one class, or we'll be invited to run a workshop 3 or 4 times in one day for a different group of students. It's entirely up to you what sort of opportunity you decide you'd like to go for. Workshops usually last about an hour, and they'll be taking a longer, slightly more in-depth look at a particular OR technique. And everything you need for a workshop, I will also provide you and help you with. So our workshop resources are all designed to be really hands-on and interactive, so students find them really engaging and it's really easy for you to hold their attention. They're also designed to be off the shelf, and what I mean by that is that they should be really easy for you to just pick up, spend a little bit of time familiarising yourself with, and then using. So all of our workshops come with a cover sheet that tells you how long it takes to run, or what you need to do before you can run it. It comes with the PowerPoint slides that you can use. It'll come with speaker notes, the student worksheet, the answer sheet, and any other resources that you need to run the workshop. And as with all of the other volunteering opportunities, ahead of a workshop, I will email you and tell you everything that you need to know. And then I'll also post you a box of leaflets and freebies that you can give out, just to make you even more popular with the students in that workshop. And to give you a flavour of the rest of our workshops, apart from our Lego one, the other popular ones that we've got are a critical path analysis workshop that tasks students with finding out what the shortest time they can cook bolognese is, because they need to work out if they've got enough time to meet their friends at the cinema after they've had their dinner. We've got a travelling salesperson resource where students need to optimise their route around a theme park so they can make sure they've got time to go on all of the rides and not miss the coach home again at the end of the day. We've got a workshop called Theatre Booking, and that focuses on bin packing algorithms. So the students have to try and seat the audience according to different algorithms, and then advise the theatre on which algorithm they should use to seat their audience. And we also have a workshop on paper cups, which is really fun because students have to work in teams and it can get a bit competitive. But each team of students has to build paper cups for a sports event. And then what they should find is that in their little assembly line process, there's a delay, and they need to work out how they can improve their process to optimize around that bottleneck. And they have to do things like record data and then do a little bit of statistical analysis to prove that they were able to improve their process. So all of our workshops you can access for free online. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And I also just wanted to include a slide today about virtual volunteering. A lot of the volunteering we've done so far has all been in person, and it looks like for the next 6 to 12 months we're in uncharted territory a little bit, and a lot of the opportunities to get involved will be online. I think this is really exciting. For example, you don't need to travel, you don't need to worry about parking or posting things backwards and forwards. You guys can just get involved from the comfort of your own home. And the advice that we would have for that is to let your personality shine as much as you can. So obviously at an in-person event, it's really easy to let your charisma and your passion come through, and that's a bit harder to achieve remotely. So things like making sure that you use your webcam so people can see your face, maybe including a slide at the start like I did that just introduces you. It can include professional stuff and also a few fun facts. Just try things like making sure you've closed any software that can have pop-ups, things like Skype or Teams or Outlook. If you can avoid it, avoid having technical difficulties at the start. And there's also different things you can do in a virtual setting to try and engage your audience and make sure that you can hold their attention. So things like the poll that we did at the beginning, encouraging the audience to chat to each other. And then the last piece of advice I would specifically give for virtual volunteering is to try and make sure that the recording is as helpful as possible. If someone is watching your recording back, they probably can't see the chat. So if someone asks you a question in the chat, like, is student membership of the OR Society free? If you just say yes, there's no context to that watching it back. So reading the question out loud and then answering it kind of future-proofs your recording a little bit and makes sure everyone can follow along. Last week, I published a full guide to virtual volunteering on the website, and that's available for you to all have a look at whenever you want. These are just some kind of key points that will hopefully help you out. And aside from the guide to virtual volunteering, we do our best to support you guys. So if you volunteer at an in-person event, we will pay for all of your expenses. We don't ever want people to be out of pocket for volunteering with ORiE. No matter what event you go to, be it in person or virtual, I will do all of the kind of backstage logistics and coordination and just tell you what you need to know, and then you can just turn up and have fun on the day. I try and take as much stress out of the process as I possibly can. As well as the virtual volunteering guide, we've also got loads of documents on the website. So there's a volunteering handbook. We've got a brief overview document of what volunteering with ORiE looks like. There's also things like the expenses policy, a claim form to submit your expenses, everything you need to feel confident volunteering with ORiE. And then once you're at an event, I'll give you my mobile number, and even if you're at an evening event, you'll always be able to just drop me a text or give me a call if you have any questions or queries when you're out and about. So you shouldn't ever feel like you've got no help at an event. And the last support that I wanted to mention is we really want you to feel appreciated and valued because you are such key members of the ORiE community. And so we run a prize draw every Christmas for volunteers. If you volunteer with us once, your name will go in the hat once. If you volunteer twice in a year, your name goes in the hat twice. So hopefully you'll be incentivized to volunteer as much as you can. The prize is a high street voucher of 40 quid, so you can't quite quit your job if you win, but hopefully you'll feel the love. And all the resources that I've mentioned on our website, I just very quickly wanted to show you. They are under Get Involved, OR and Education, and then there's some information under For Volunteers, and all of the downloads can be found under Volunteering Resources. And if I've hopefully sold you on volunteering with ORiE at this stage, you might be thinking, well, this is great, but how can I get involved? So there's two different ways you can get involved. Firstly, you can sign up to the Ori Newsletter. So twice a month, I send out an email. I promise I won't spam you. And it tells you what all the different volunteering opportunities are, when they are, where they are, all of that kind of thing. So you can either ask me to add you to the mailing list, and I will, or you can change your communication preferences if you're an OR Society member through our website. And then if you'd like to get involved maybe more indirectly, say your children's school is running a careers fair and they're encouraging parents to talk about their careers, or you volunteer with other education outreach programs, you're always more than welcome to use any of the ORiE resources. If you need me to post out some leaflets, I will. If there's any support I can give you, I will. We're not precious about our resources. We want everyone to use them and talk about OR and tell people how great it is. So the last thing I wanted to mention before I move on to the Lego workshop is if any of you volunteer with the STEM Ambassador Scheme, which asks you to log the hours you spend volunteering, we work quite closely with them, and you can log any hours that you volunteer with ORiE under that scheme. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, you can use the ORiE resources when you volunteer as a STEM ambassador or any other kind of volunteering that you do. So I'm going to pause for 30 seconds now. This is your chance to go and grab some Lego if you'd like to take part in the Lego Furniture Factory. So you'll need 6 pieces of Lego that look like this, rectangular ones, and 8 that are square Lego bricks. And if you've got them handy, a pen and some paper will also be really helpful. So the Lego Furniture Factory sets students the challenge of helping a company called Swedebuild, who are most definitely not a rip-off of IKEA, helping Swedebuild to launch a new range of dining room furniture. Swedebuild would like to know whether they should manufacture more tables or more chairs, or a combination of both, to maximise their profit. However, the catch is that Swedebuild, like most companies, only has a limited amount of resources to work with, which is the 6 rectangular bricks and the 8 square bricks. Just a brief note on inclusivity here. All of the ORiE Lego is blue and red for the different size pieces, and the slides are all colour coordinated the same. However, I make a huge effort to call them rectangular and square rather than red and blue, just in case anyone is colourblind, and it just means that everyone can follow along first time round without having to ask questions. So, with our limited number of rectangular and square Lego bricks, we need to build tables and chairs to a common design. So our tables have 2 Lego bricks as the base, and then 2 of the rectangular bricks as the top. Hopefully you can see me in the corner of your screen. And then the chairs have a square base. They've got a rectangular section for people to sit on, and they've got a square as the back. And the first question we ask students, or I'm asking you now if you are taking part, is how many chairs and tables can you make with your limited number of bricks? If you're playing along at home, I recommend just jotting down the different combinations so you can turn this into a table in a moment. And while you're all playing with Lego, I just want to add here, this is a really flexible workshop, so you can bring as much or as little OR or real world into this as you'd like. So for older students, you might prefer to keep this part moving along and spend longer talking about the maths and the OR technique. For younger students, you might want to talk about things like why is modelling helpful in this situation? So why would we want to make our furniture with a common design? What kind of materials would Swedebuild use to model this in real life? And then, it's things like the common design is helpful because if Swedebuild can minimise the materials they use for one table, they can build more tables and therefore maximise their profit. And also, a common design is really important for their sort of production lines in the factory. It keeps everything running much more smoothly. And in reality, they would probably model with plastic or wood or metal or the kind of materials they would be building the furniture from in real life. So now that you've hopefully built all your tables and chairs, we need to work out how much it's going to cost us to manufacture that furniture. So the square bricks cost £3 and the rectangular bricks cost £5. So your next challenge is to work out how much each of the different combinations would cost to manufacture. I'm going to keep this bit moving along quite quickly because we had a late start and I don't want to keep you. So if I'm moving too quickly for you now, I'm very sorry. Hopefully you'll be able to watch it back and have another go if you'd like to try the Lego out. So once students have worked out how much it costs to manufacture each combination, they need to work out how much they can sell each combination for, because then they can work out how much profit they can make and work out which combination of furniture is the most profitable. So tables sell for £32 and chairs sell for £21. How much will you make when you sell each combination? What do your different profit margins look like? And this is the point where we tend to stop this activity when we run it at a science fair and just get students to work out the right combination and then talk about OR. Obviously it goes on further, which we're about to do if you run this in a classroom setting. And I think we've got another poll ready for if you've been able to play along and if you want to tell us what you think the correct answer is. So no worries if you didn't get a chance to work it out just yet. But if you think you know the answer, please let me know. So far we've had a couple of answers. Most people have got the right answer. Last chance to vote if you'd like to. Okay, so we'll end the poll there. Most of you said that 2 tables and 2 chairs is the most profitable combination. And if you said that, you are correct. So congratulations, you've helped Swedebuild maximise their profit. And when we run this in a classroom, we move on to talking about how the methods you've just used to solve that are essentially trial and error. And that worked fine, but how would we solve this problem if trial and error wasn't a feasible solution? What if we had 6,000 or 8,000 Lego bricks to work with? I'd really like to play with Lego all day and work that out, but unfortunately not many companies pay you to do that. So I'm sure most of you have worked out which OR technique we're about to introduce. But the next step is to formulate some equations and then plot them on a graph to work this out in a less trial and error way, in a more direct way. So for our model, we're going to say that the number of tables produced will be represented by T, and the number of chairs produced will be represented by C. And then we ask, we ask students to write down an inequality that links the number of total bricks they have available to the number of bricks used in the manufacture of the furniture. I don't think too many of you have got Lego with you, so I won't ask you to do this. But once you've written an inequality linking the tables and chairs to the rectangular bricks, we need to repeat that process for the square bricks and the table and chairs. And hopefully students will write down 2 inequalities, which are 2t plus c is less than or equal to 6 for the rectangular bricks. And for the square bricks, 2t plus 2c is less than or equal to 8. And once students have these inequalities, they can find some coordinates and then use those coordinates to plot them. So we need to find these coordinates, and we're going to temporarily pretend that our inequalities are regular equations. And we're going to say, if t is 0, what does 6 equal? And likewise, when c is 0, what is t equal to? And this maths is fairly straightforward. So you should get a pair of coordinates 0, 6 and 3, 0. And then, unsurprisingly, we now need to repeat that process and work out what the coordinates will be for the second inequality, assuming for a moment that that is also an equation. So this time we will get a pair of coordinates. Sorry, a little bit trigger happy with my mouse. 0, 4 and 4, 0. And that means we can now plot our lines on a graph. And just like Blue Peter, here is one that I made earlier. So in the workshop, we ask students to plot this graph themselves. Obviously, in the interests of time, I'm not going to ask you all to get out rulers and graph paper now. And there's a few things that we can talk about with this graph and really reinforce that link that OR is all about real world problems and real world decision making. So the lines on this graph extend into the negative quadrants of the graph. Could that lead to a real solution? a correct solution in real life? Well, no, it couldn't. You can't manufacture -1 chairs. So we know that the region in this graph that the correct answers lie in will be in the positive quadrant. And similarly, although we've treated these lines like equations, they are inequalities, and we can ask students, given that they are less than inequalities, which side of the line will the correct answer lie on? Hopefully students will realise the correct solution must lie underneath the line. And that gives us a feasible region, which I've shaded on this graph, where all of the possible solutions must lie. You can see that I've plotted the possible combinations with diamonds on the graph. And then here we can talk to students about how, because we are trying to maximize our objective function, which is profit, then the correct answer must sit on either a corner or an edge of this graph, because the objective function won't be maximized when it's in the middle of the feasible region or in the middle of the right answers. The correct answer will sit on the edge where the line just touches the feasible region. Or it could also, if you were minimizing the function, it would work the same way, but obviously you'd want the smallest corner. And although all but one of our possible combinations does sit on the edge of this feasible region, and so perhaps in this instance, using this technique to find out which solutions we need to try isn't actually that helpful. Obviously, if we had thousands or millions of Lego bricks, using linear programming to solve this problem would be absolutely essential. So yeah, pat ourselves on the back. 2 tables and 2 chairs absolutely sits on the corner of the feasible region and is definitely the right answer. And then we, as I've already mentioned, this is linear programming, which I'm sure you all worked out 10 minutes ago. Once students have used the graph to work out what the correct answer is, we say to students, you've just done a technique called linear programming. Linear programming is really helpful when you're dealing with a set of constraints. You can minimize or maximize things. And linear programming is a really, really common OR technique. Oh, and by the way, OR is awesome. So I've done this slightly backwards for you guys, but if you were to run this in a school or at an enrichment day, this would be the point where you'd use those slides with the examples of OR or use your own examples. We've also got an example of another linear programming technique that is in the slide deck. Depending on, again, the age of the students and how interested they are, you could talk about how linear programming can be used when you've got 3 variables rather than 2, and go on to talk about things like simplex. The choice is really yours. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. So that just about sums up my presentation this afternoon even. Thank you very, very much for joining us and for listening to me. I really hope I've been able to demystify volunteering and make it seem as exciting and as fun as it is. If you'd like to get in touch, then the link on our website is there. You can tweet at me, which is at @ORiE, and you can also send me an email. I'll leave those contact details up on the screen now and answer any questions. So please do let me know if you've got any questions. So somebody has just asked in the Q&A, would this translate easily to giving colleagues a heads up on OR? I think it would, yeah. I think there's a lot of our different resources that you can use depending on what type of OR you use in your business. Yeah, I don't think Lego is just for kids. I think there's, I think everyone loves Lego.
Hi Eve, it's Geraldine here. So we've got another couple of questions for you here. Does the website give dates of when events are planned?
At the moment, it doesn't. That's something that we're working on. I'm hoping to make a few changes to the website later on in the year and be able to make information like that easier for you guys to access. Yeah, at the moment, the best way to find out what events are planned is to sign up to my newsletter, and then everything that we've got that I need volunteers for, I share in the newsletter every month.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here that I'm not actually sure you're going to be able to answer, Eve, unless you've got insider information to the kind of the government. But when do you see us being able to get out and about and do some of the workshops?
I don't know. That's a really hard question to answer. I know that all of the events we've got coming up before Christmas are online events. Most of them at the moment are careers fairs at universities. If schools near you are open in person and they're open to people getting involved, then by all means do so. I do think a lot of our resources translate well to webinar. I hope you were able to enjoy and take part in the Lego remotely.
Okay, we've got a question from Janet. We've got a question from Janet. How many volunteers do we have in total?
Ooh, in total, I think there's about 700 people who are signed up as ORiE volunteers. However, I know that in the previous academic year, so not the one that's just ended, I think we had around 50 people who actively took part in an ORiE event. And that's not to chastise the other 650, but just to kind of say, I know a lot of volunteering is dependent on you having free time and there being opportunities in an area that's easy for you to get to.
And we've got a question from Mary. Can you volunteer in other countries apart from the UK?
Absolutely, yes. So I don't coordinate any opportunities that are abroad. The OR Society in your country may do so, I don't know. But as I said, all of our resources are free, so you're welcome to take our resources and use them wherever you'd like to. And if I can help with that, I will.
Great. And a question from Declan. Are the resources only on the website?
For now, yes, all of the workshops are only available on the TES website, which is the Times Educational Supplement. It's a really popular website for teachers to share and find resources. So, as I said, hopefully updates coming to the website soon and we'll add them there then. In the meantime, although you need an account to download resources from TES, it's free to join. So hopefully that's not too much of a barrier to access. You can also just email me and I can send things over to you.
Okay, and do we have a schedule? I suppose this probably links to what we've discussed, but is there a schedule for future events? It's from Chandra.
So again, at the moment, there isn't on the website, unfortunately. You can email me and I can share that with you, or you'll get a monthly update in the newsletter. That's not a very helpful answer, sorry.
No, it's very uncertain times. So yeah, and also from Shandan, how can I join? I'm assuming that's meaning how do you sign up to volunteer?
Yeah, so if you'd like to volunteer, you just need to make sure you get my newsletter so you know what opportunities are coming up. And then if there's an opportunity that you'd like to go to, just send me an email and say, oh, hey, that science fair or that careers fair looks great. I'd like to go. And then I'll put your name next to it on my list and send you all the info that you need to go to that event.
Okay, great. I think that's, unless anybody has any other further questions, if you could just type them in now, and I think we have a couple of minutes to go. Lots of great feedback in the chat as well. Looks like everyone's really enjoyed the session. So we've even got a recommendation for a cookbook from Gary.
Ooh,
saying, Eve, you should read Eugenia Cheng's book, How to Make Pie.
Oh, I'll have a look at that.
Very apt. So thank you very much for that tip, Gary.
Yep. No. I make
Oh, sorry, Jana just asked if you could reconfirm how many pieces of each type of Lego.
Oh, sure. So apologies if this is slightly belated, but 6 of the rectangular pieces, kind of 2x4s, I think of them as, and then 8 of these square 2x2s.
Okay, thanks very much for all of your questions, and thanks very much, Eve, for a very informative presentation. And we hope to see lots more of you signing up to join as ORiE volunteers.
Please do.
Okay, anything else from you, Eve?
I don't think so. I think just enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Yeah, and feel free to get in touch anytime with any questions or queries.